A huge thank you to everyone that viewed my NFL Mock Draft 1.0, also known as the Draftboard Series. I think it was a great series. It was a great experiment to see if I'm going to do it again next year. I'm leaning towards doing it again next year, but maybe a little bit different than I did this year because kind of toward the end, I felt like I was pushing them out kind of because I wanted to get that top 50 draft out of the way and I wanted to get some more mock drafts in because that was around the time the combine was happening. So I'm thinking about doing maybe a little bit differently. I'm not sure yet, but the good thing about it is I have about maybe 9 months to think about it. So let's just proceed to my NFL mock draft 2.0. I wasn't sure how to present this. I was thinking just maybe just talking about a couple of the picks because this mock draft, all the events that happened today, throughout the trades and the rumors, the deals, it had a huge effect on this mock draft 2.0. And in a couple of them, you might see how it's really an effect. I was thinking just talking about those picks or just maybe naming off the picks one by one and just signing off and put the whole order and give some explanations in the description box down below. But I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. Maybe I'll explain a couple of them. This is kind of a go with the flow type of situation. So I'm just going to go ahead and name all the picks. Let's start off with the first overall pick of the Cleveland Browns, going with Saquon Barkley, running back out of Penn State. Number 2 are the New York Giants, going with Josh Rosen, quarterback out of UCLA. Number 3, I have the Colts going with Bradley Chubb, defensive end of NC State. Number 4, I have the Browns. Now, this is the Texans pick, by the way. They got this pick from the Texans because the Texans traded up for Deshaun Watson last year. Minkah Fitzpatrick, cornerback out of Alabama. Number 5, I have the Broncos going with Sam Darnold, quarterback out of USC. Number 6, I have the Jets going with Baker Mayfield, quarterback out of Oklahoma. Number 7, I have the Buccaneers going with Quentin Nelson, the guard out of Notre Dame. Number 8, I have the Chicago Bears going with Calvin Ridley, wide receiver out of Alabama. Number 9, I have the 49ers going with Mike McGlinchey, offensive tackle out of Notre Dame. Number 10, I have the Raiders going with Marcus Davenport, the defensive end out of University of Texas San Antonio. Number 11, this is the first pick that you might see that played an effect, like the news and the trades, the deals, etc. This is probably the first pick where you see what those news stories we saw today goes into effect here. But number 11, I have the Miami Dolphins going with Christian Kirk, wide receiver out of Texas A&M. Number 12, I have the Bengals going with Roquan Smith, linebacker out of Georgia. Number 13 are the Washington Redskins going with Vita Vea, defensive tackle out of Washington. Number 14 are the Green Bay Packers going with Denzel Ward, cornerback out of Ohio State. Number 15, I have the Cardinals going with Josh Allen, quarterback out of Wyoming. Number 16 are the Baltimore Ravens going with Cortland Sutton, wide receiver out of SMU. Number 17 are the Chargers going with Tremaine Edmonds, a linebacker out of Virginia Tech. Number 18 are the Seahawks going with Josh Jackson, cornerback out of Iowa. Now, this could be the second pick in this mock draft. You could see where the news probably played into effect, where all these stories played into effect. The Seahawks need to go with some secondary help, considering they're cleaning house on that defense. The Legion of Boom is no more. Number 19 are the Cowboys going with Daron Payne, defensive tackle out of Alabama. Number 20 are the Lions going with Harold Landry, linebacker out of Boston College. Now, 21 and 22, both those picks are owned by the Bills. And honestly, it doesn't matter what the picks really are because they're picking back-to-back anyway. But at pick number 21, I have the Bills going with Orlando Brown, offensive tackle out of Oklahoma. And his main purpose is to serve protection for their 22nd pick overall, Lamar Jackson, quarterback out of Louisville. Now, the Bills had an opportunity to go with either Pat Mahomes or Deshaun Watson last year with that 10th overall pick, but they ultimately traded that pick to the Chiefs, and now they get their quarterback this year, considering they traded Tyrod Taylor to the Cleveland Browns today. Number 23, I have the Rams with Arden Key, defensive end of Louisville. Now, that pick could be a surprise to some, depending on how you look at this draft prospect in particular. because Arden Key has top 10 talent, but he has the injury and those off the field issues. But if you take them out, I think he's a steal at this point in the draft. Number 24, the Panthers are going with Connor Williams, offensive tackle out of Texas. Number 25, the Titans going with Sam Hubbard, defensive end out of Ohio State. Number 26, the Falcons go with Taven Bryan, defensive tackle out of Florida. Number 27, the Saints going with Mark Andrews, the tight end out of Oklahoma. Number 28, the Steelers going with Derwin James, the safety out of Florida State. 29, the Jaguars going with Will Hernandez, the guard out of UTEP. Number 30, I have the Minnesota Vikings going with Colton Miller, the offensive tackle out of UCLA. Number 31, the Patriots going with Jair Alexander, the cornerback out of Louisville. Number 32, the Super Bowl 52 champions, the Philadelphia Eagles, will go with James Washington, the wide receiver out of Oklahoma State. So that is my NFL Mock Draft 2.0. Let's go over some of the picks that stuck out to me a little bit. Now, of course, let's talk about the Browns real quick. With picks 1 and 4, you get 2 top 4 picks. And right now, based on the news that we've had today, the Browns now have a quarterback in Tyrod Taylor, and they have Jarvis Landry as the wide receiver. So with picks 1 and 4, they can fill 2 more big gaps. And one of them is the running back. Saquon Barkley has the ability to probably win you about 3 or 4 games next season. And Jarvis Landry, he may not be an elite wide receiver, but he can at least get some solid production throughout a couple of games throughout the year. So the Browns, they're making all these blockbuster trades. And we'll see what happens with the Browns, but I think the Browns might go 5-11 in 2018. At least they're set up to go that way. They could probably go 6-10 if they do draft Saquon Barkley, because the Browns could probably be in a couple of, maybe in half their games in 2018. At least that's what it's looking like right now. Now let's also go over the Dolphins with pick number 11, Christian Kirk, wide receiver of Texas A&M. Now this is kind of a pick where you want to find someone that replaces Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry was arguably the best wide receiver on that team, and Christian Kirk, he's the best available wide receiver at this point in the draft, considering I had Calvin Ridley going to the Bears number 8. So that's kind of a pick that played an effect on the news that we saw today. The Dolphins at number 11, they go with somebody that can find their replacement. Another one that stuck out, number 14, the Packers went with Denzel Ward, the cornerback out of Ohio State. The Packers need secondary help. I think, in my opinion, depending on what it was, because I just did this mock draft today, but I think Denzel Ward would have been an ideal pick here regardless, depending on if they let Sam Shields go or not. I think this pick for the Packers at 14, I think would have been Denzel Ward no matter what, at least in my mock draft. Number 18, the Seahawks with Josh Jackson, cornerback out of Iowa. Now the Legion of Boom is no more in Seattle. They had a great run, but Richard Sherman has been released. Michael Bennett was traded to the Eagles earlier this week. It's uncertain about Cam Chancellor's future, and Earl Thomas has been in talks with a couple of teams as a piece of trade value. So that's another one that sticks out. And finally, let me talk about this one real quick. Well, these two. 22, the Bills go with Lamar Jackson, quarterback out of Louisville. The Bills are needing a quarterback now. Because let's just face it. Do they really think Nathan Peterman is a franchise quarterback? No. So they want to try to get a franchise quarterback. And Lamar Jackson, I don't care what anybody says. I don't care if people think he should be a wide receiver. But he's a quarterback. If he can just work on his accuracy a little bit, I think he can be a pretty solid quarterback. Maybe not an elite one, but he could probably find himself in the playoffs maybe 2 or 3 times in his career, if he can work on the accuracy a little bit. 23, the Rams go with Arden Key, defense out of Louisville. And now this one depends on how you look at the draft prospects and throughout this whole process. But Arden Key is a top 10 talent. But he does have some off the field issues at points, and he had the injury earlier in the season. But the Rams defense. Now, I have the unpopular opinion of saying that I'm not completely sold on this Rams defense yet, but with a defense that's coordinated by Wade Phillips, I think this pick of Arden Key 23, it would do wonders for the Rams. Because the Rams are kind of trying to show some vibes of the Legion of Doom that's no longer. But I'm not that sold on it yet. I probably will be by week 4 of next season. I'll know by week 5 or 6 what the Rams defense is really capable of. I've seen some people compare it to the Legion of Boom. I've seen some people compare it to Jacksonville's defense. We just don't know yet. Panthers going with Connor Williams, offensive tackle of Texas. Now, a wide receiver was one of those big needs that we had for the Panthers in that Draftboard Series. But they traded for Torrey Smith today. And right now, I think the Panthers need to get an offensive tackle to protect Cam Newton and set up some extra gaps in the running game. Now, it's uncertain. I will say this really quickly. There were some people that I thought could fit in this first round. For example, Sony Michel, running back out of Georgia. I think he could sneak in this first round at some point in a mock draft of mine, depending on how things play out from now until draft night. Because free agency period doesn't start until March 14th. I think it's March 14th. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm correct. So there is still some time to figure out what free agents will play where. So someone like Sony Michel could also be an ideal pick at number 24 if the Panthers want to take a gamble and try to get an offensive tackle in the second round. Because just imagine a backfield with Christian McCaffrey and Sony Michel, two running backs that really performed very valuable numbers in college. Just something to think about. Considering the backfields in the NFC South are for Atlanta Devonta Freeman and Tevin Coleman, and for the Saints with Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. Just think of that backfield. See, the final one I want to talk about, actually, I apologize. Number 31, the Patriots going with Jair Alexander, cornerback out of Louisville. This is a replacement for Malcolm Butler. That's kind of all I want to say on that. Because we've already talked about Malcolm Butler a couple of times. He was benched in the Super Bowl. According to reports that he was out after curfew a couple nights for the Super Bowl. If it wasn't that night before, I can't remember. But he was out past curfew leading up to the Super Bowl Sunday. And that's why he was benched. And he threw a tantrum. He had a meltdown in front of assistants and other members on that staff. So the Patriots find the replacement at number 31 in Jair Alexander. And the final one I talk about, number 32, the Eagles, going to James Washington, wide receiver of Oklahoma State. This is the final one that plays effect in this mock draft with all the news and speculations and etc. today that we've all learned. This is your replacement for Torrey Smith. It's kind of simple as that. Based on the ones that we've discussed, it's basically finding your replacements. So that is my NFL Mock Draft 2.0. Comment your thoughts on some of my picks. Actually, comment what you think about who I think your team is taking in this mock draft. Let me know what you think about your team's pick here. If you want to comment pick by pick and leave me 32 comments, go ahead. The more comments, the better. Like and share the channel. Share this with your friends and family. I will see you next time. Have a wonderful day, everyone.